we will start. Over to our MC of the day, Sujata Ramesh Babu.
A very good morning to one and all. Magic always happens when you direct your inner powers to the object you want to change. We have the very right person, Dr. Mohamed Rela, is amongst us to talk to us about Sigaram, Thotta, Manidharin, Ennangal. And we welcome you all to this series as part of our Wellness in Magilchi series number 10. I kindly request Dr. Rotarian Ramesh Babu, President of Rotary Club of Chennai, Germany, to welcome the gathering.
Thank you, Sujata. Dear Speaker of the Day, Professor Mohamed Rela, my dear T20 Presidents of participating clubs, Rotarian Viswanathan, Rotary Club of Ambattur, Rotarian Tyagarajan, Rotary Club of Chennai Eera, Rotarian Meghanathan, Rotary Club of Valacheri, Rotarian Kannappan, Rotary Club of Madras Coromandel, other T20 presidents, secretaries, AGs, district officers, ANs, ANETs, our own Rotary Club of Chennai Gemini ANET Club president is also here, Praveen, Rotaractors, RCC, MIG members, my dear Geminians, and of course, Stand 75 friends, friends of Rotary, colleagues of Professor Mohamed Rela, Mr. Raj, PA to Mohamed Rela, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to one and all. Nice to welcome you all on this wonderful Sunday. As the President of Rotary Club of Chennai Gemini, the lead club of this event, I have great pleasure in welcoming you all. Today's topic is Sigaram Thotta Manidharin Ennangal. You are all aware that ஒரு மனிதரின் செயல்கள், that is actions, தான் அவருடைய உயரிய பண்புகளை வெளிப்படுத்தும். செயல்களின் பிரதிபலிப்பு அவருடைய எண்ணங்கள். ஆகையால் ஒரு சில மனிதர்கள் உயரிய நிலையை அடைகின்றனர். நம்முடைய பேச்சாளர் முகமது ரீலா போன்று அவர்களுடைய எண்ணங்களின் தன்மையினால் இன்று நம்மிடையே சிகரம் தொட்ட மனிதராக ப்ரொஃபசர் டாக்டர் முகமது ரீலா வந்துள்ளார். அவர் தன்னுடைய எண்ணங்களை நம்மிடையே பகிர்ந்து கொள்ள உள்ளார். We all shall listen to him and emulate him in whatever way possible and try to reach the peak as he has achieved. I once again welcome every one of you for this stimulating and thought-provoking session. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ramesh Babu. So it's my proud privilege to invite another achiever, a great achiever, a Rotarian in pharmacology, Rotarian Dr. Rela to introduce our speaker of the day, Rotarian, Dr. Mohamed Rela. Over to you, Rela.
Thank you. ஞாயிறு போற்றுதும் காவிரி நாடன் திகிரி போல் பொற்கோட்டு மேருவலம் தெரிதலான் என்று காலை சூரியனை வணங்கி நண்பன் ரமேஷ் பாபு கோழி சிலம்பு குருகு எங்கும் ஏழில் இயம்பும் வெண்சங்கும் கேழில் பரஞ்சோதி கேழில் பரங்கருணை கேழில் விருப்பொருட்கள் பாடினோம். இது என்ன உறக்கமோ வாய் திறவாய் என்று காலை என்னை தட்டி எழுப்பி வாய் திறவாய் பேசு என்று அழைத்து என் நண்பனை பற்றி பேசி என் நண்பனை வாழ்த்தி என் நண்பனை அறிமுகப்படுத்த சொல்லி இதற்கு ஒரு வாய்ப்பு கொடுத்தது ரமேஷ் பாபுவுக்கு பல கோடி நன்றி. முகமது ரீலா அவர்களை வருக வருக என எங்கள் ரோட்டரி ஜெமினி சார்பாக மற்ற ரோட்டரி தலைவர்கள் சார்பாக நாங்கள் மனமாற வரவேற்கிறோம். வரலாறு படிப்போர் பலர் உண்டு, வரலாறு படைக்கும் எங்கள் நண்பர் முகமது ரீலா அவர்கள் படைத்துக் கொண்டே இருக்கிறார். இன்னும் பல சிகரங்கள், அவர் சிகரத்தை கண்டது மட்டுமல்ல, சிகரத்தை ஆண்டு கொண்டிருப்பவர், இன்னும் பல சிகரங்களை அடைய போகிறவர். அவருக்கு ஒரு சிகரம் என்பது ஒரு படிக்கல் தான். அது போல பல சிகரங்கள் இருக்கிறது. அவரை நண்பர் அவரை அறிமுகப்படுத்த வாய்ப்பு கொடுத்தது. It is my pride, my privilege to introduce our classmate, Stan 75. I am so happy that many of our Stan 75 classmates are here. We have great pleasure in welcoming him. He had given us the pride and went on to qualify, teaching, reaching one peak after another. And he himself is a great university, and he is the chancellor of an university. I share the screen now to read his biodata. Some people do not need introduction. By introducing Mohamed Rela, I get the honor and introduction to various people. Such a star-studded, it's all full of achievements. Professor Mohamed Rela is the Chancellor of Bharat University and the Chairman and Managing Director of one of the world's premier institute in the field of transplantation and, of course, the tertiary care. Professor Mohamed Rela is Chairman, Managing Director, Dr. Rela Institute of Medical Center. He also has a Guinness World Record holder. Why I say that Guinness World Record? Because that is one thing that he got, and I don't know how in these years to come he may have more Guinness records. So that is the beginning. And one other extraordinary dimension which I am always overawed by his exponential knowledge in Kambaramayanam, very insightful, very touching and moving aspect of his expertise and interest in Kambaramayanam. He is globally renowned liver transplant surgeon with over 25 years of experience. He has been a consultant surgeon and professor of liver surgery at King's College Hospital, London since 1993. It's almost like 27 years. He has been working in India since 2009, runs the busiest liver transplantation program in southern India, performing over 250 liver transplants every year. It is a phenomenal achievement. He has authored over 450 peer-reviewed publications in some of the stellar journals and a number of book chapters. In fact, our Bible anatomy for any student of medicine, and he has contributed a chapter into the latest edition of Gray's Anatomy. He founded the annual master class in liver disease in 2011, and it is one of the most popular academic events in Southern Asia. This program is attended by over 1,000 people, 1,000 delegates. They are all specialists across the world. He is the president-elect of International Liver Transplantation Society. He has a research interest in mechanics of liver regeneration, radical resection of hilar axillary partial orthotopic liver transplantation. இதெல்லாம் ரொம்ப டெக்னிக்கலாக இருந்தாலும் சிறு அழகாக இதை விளக்கி சொல்ல வேண்டும் என்றால், நம்மிடையே இருக்கிறார் என்பது நமக்கு பெருமை. இவர் உலக அளவில் இவர் ஒரு அமெரிக்கராக இருந்தாலோ அல்லது ஒரு ஆஸ்திரேலியாக இருந்தாலோ அநேகமாக நோபல் பரிசு கட்டாயமாக கொடுத்திருப்பார்கள். அந்த அளவிற்கு மிக உயர்ந்த மனிதர். இவருக்கு நான் முதலில் சொன்னது போல ஒரு சிகரம் என்பது சாதாரண விஷயம், ஒரு படிக்கட்டு போல. இன்னும் பல சிகரங்களை அடைவார். இவரை நாம் தெரிந்து வைத்திருக்கிறோம். இவர் என்னோடு படித்தார் என்று நான் சொல்லுவது, நாங்கள் எங்கள் கல்லூரி மாணவர்கள் எல்லாம் இப்பொழுது எல்லாம் வந்திருக்கிறோம் இங்கே. எங்களுக்கெல்லாம் அது ஒரு பெருமை. கடைசியில் சிம்பிளாக சொல்ல வேண்டும் என்றால், இந்த எங்களுடைய கண்களுக்கு, in these eyes of our eyes, your light has never stopped shining, Rela. It is as bright as the sun. வாழ்க வளமுடன் ரீலா, வருக மகிழ்வுடன், பகிர்க உங்கள் எண்ணங்களை, உங்கள் வளர்ச்சியின் பாதையை. அது எங்கள் எல்லோருக்கும் ஊக்கமாக இருக்கும். வணக்கம், வருக வருக ரீலா. முகமது ரீலா, ப்ரொஃபசர் முகமது ரீலா. நான் அவர்கிட்ட ஹேண்ட் ஓவர் பண்ணிடுறேன் செஷனை.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellison. You've been very, very kind. I won't go into the formalities of thanking everyone, but I have to thank Ramesh Babu. When he came on the phone, he sounded exactly like he was actually some 30 years ago. I like the way you speak. You throw your voice. I know everybody will recognize that. You speak at as though you're, even normal conversation, you're speaking like you're addressing an audience. That's a distinct way you speak, and thank you. I want to thank Rotary Club of Germany and all other Rotary clubs for this morning session. Ellison has been quite close to me really more recently, and again I think the connection is Tamil, and he's also somebody who's achieved greatly amongst our friends in Stand 75. I mean, we see that all the time. It's amazing how we all grow differently from how we are as friends. நம்ம வந்து ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ்கிட்ட தான் ரொம்ப ஒன்றும் பெருமையா பேசிக்க முடியாது, ஏன்னா அவங்களுக்கு தான் தெரியும் நம்ம எப்படி இருந்தோம் சின்ன வயசுலன்னு. So everybody thinks, oh, பெரிய ஆள் இவரு, அப்பல இருந்தே பெரிய ஆளுன்னு. So நான் அப்படி ஒன்றும் பேசுற மாதிரி இல்லை. And I was just an ordinary student in Stanley. I don't know if I can call Ellison, me, Ramesh Babu, we were all very similar people. Nothing extraordinary at a time, and we have grown and taken different paths and achieved what we have achieved, and we continue to work hard. I'll talk about little bit about my journey, maybe not so much about my student days, because there are a lot of my colleagues here. And I want to thank Stand 75 group, really. I think it's one of the most vibrant college groups you can imagine, really. I think at a time like this, it's very important to have groups which are so supportive. So I will start off. Can you see my screen sharing?
Yes.
I just called it my journey, and I think I will start with Stanley. I think as a young boy, I was quite successful and very hardworking. I think I studied in Kalakshetra. I think we were from a village. I was born in a village near Mailadurai, and my father lived in Singapore. So he really put me in, he wanted to educate us, so bought a house in Chennai, and I studied as a child actually. When I was in my 3rd standard, I was put in Kalakshetra. And Besant Theosophical High School. In fact, I scored the school first actually. I was the highest. I think many of the people who come into medical school will be like that. Medical college will be like that. And in fact, amongst the school in that region, Adyar, Mylapore, in all of those, I had the highest SSLC mark actually. My colleagues may not know that, but once I came into Stanley, I felt, because there were many people who were number 1 coming from various places, you feel a little down actually after coming to medical school. But I wasn't too bad a student either. I think I was a little bit maybe above average, and I had an interest in surgery. Many of you might know that I had an interest in surgery, and I wanted to pursue surgery. My fascination for surgery actually improved when I went to work in plastic surgery. Everybody knows Dr. Venkateswamy. I think after coming back, he's also become close to me, and he was the 2 people, Dr. C.M.K. Reddy and Dr. Venkateswamy, I would say have been my mentors, and their outstanding abilities really helped me to choose a specialty. Even though I didn't choose plastic surgery, there are many. I wanted to do urology, really. And I'm proud to say that Dr. Venkateswamy has just written his autobiography, and it's named Healing Hands. I mean, he's a hand surgeon. It's very, very apt. And I'm very pleased to say that he's actually mentioned me in his autobiography, which is somebody that you admire as the greatest surgeon as a young person would actually include me in his story. Was very, very nice for me and very humbling for me, actually. I would see that as a huge achievement for myself. But I got stuck after MBBS. I wanted to do surgery and I didn't get an MS seat for 2 years. I was working as a senior house officer, and many of my colleagues were moving on, and I was really down, really, in that time. And after 2 years, I think when they introduced the entrance exam for the first time in Tamil Nadu for postgraduate, I got a seat. In fact, I scored extremely high marks because I was already preparing for PLAB to go to the UK. I thought the future is not here for me to train in surgery. And it was just about, I was planning to leave in 4 months' time, that I got selected to do MS. And I had such high marks, I chose where I could go those days. So I chose to stay in Stanley with CCS unit, with whom I was doing really the senior house officer jobs, which is just running around doing nothing, basically, and getting very little training. But I think that unit helped me quite a lot. But my decision to go abroad remained. I did not want to stay in India after that because I thought it might be very difficult for me to survive in India. So as soon as I finished MS, I think I wrote the entrance. While doing MS itself, I went to the UK and finished my PLAB and Part 1 FRCS. So I think I almost spent 6 months during the MS period traveling to London and working in London, making my own money. I have to say I didn't depend on my family's money for all the travel. To an extent that CCS said, I don't have enough attendance and I will not support you if you didn't get a hall ticket. I said, that's fine. But I got my hall ticket and I passed my exam, and when I knew the unofficial result, the next day I went back to the UK. Because I have to say at that time, I never ever thought that I would come back to India because I saw myself as a huge failure in India. I went to the UK. Life has not been easy. I have to say, I worked in many places as by then I had my FRCS and my MS. So I was very well qualified for registrar jobs. But I was only working in district hospitals. I didn't get a chance to get into a teaching hospital, which is where the career progression would have been in the UK. And obviously there would have been discriminations, there would have been difficulties. I think one has to put up with all of that to come up in a system, and we have to be better than all others. I actually would have been a urologist if it was my choice, but I didn't get good jobs in teaching centers in urology, and therefore I had an opportunity. In the UK at that time, they used to have registrars will be interviewed every year just to see what their progress is. And most of the interviews would have left me feeling depressed because they would only be saying, what are you doing in this country? You're well trained. Why don't you go back to India? That's a kind of conclusion. But finally, it was once that one of the surgeons, when I was working in Kent, said to me, go to King's, because the liver transplant is a new field and not a lot of local candidates want to do because it involves day and night work, going for retrieval to different parts of the country, bringing organs back in. That might provide you with an opportunity. So it was by chance that I went to King's, and there was a Chinese surgeon working at that time. Tough life, really. I think that's been one of the toughest time of my life, where I've been abused and really given a very hard time, and almost 3 months into it, I almost wanted to leave the job and go, but really I persisted. That's the only time I think I rang my parents and said, I can't work in this country anymore. but that was that job really which gave me an opening into the system. So I performed well, and 3 years later, I mean 1.5 years later, I became a senior registrar for the first time. I think once you become a senior registrar in the UK, you become a consultant automatically. And I got appointed as a consultant surgeon in 1993 or 1994 in King's College Hospital. So I think really that's where I wanted to say that really perseverance and hard work, ignoring insults, is all very important for really in life coming up. It's not handed to you on a plate. Nothing really is handed to you on a plate. And I was fortunate really to meet and work with one of the biggest people in the field. Thomas Tarzl is no more. He died last year. Was in fact knew me well, and I was well guided. And Roy Khan again is one of the pioneers in the field of liver transplantation. He is the one who actually popularized cyclosporin. You will all know cyclosporin as a drug which was used in transplantation, which transformed the outlook of. In fact, Roy Khan worked with me. I worked with him in some of the animal work that I did. Was helped by Roy Khan. This is Thomas Tarzl with his grandson and me. Sorry, I'm just drinking a little bit of water. So really, I was guided to an extent that when one of the biggest professors retired in Europe, Thomas Tarzl came to that meeting. They asked me to talk on the most important subject matter, which was split liver transplantation. Then I'll tell you how things really moved on from that point. Liver transplantation was a new science. When I went there, King's College Hospital now is the largest liver transplant program in the world, at least. We have done around 6,000 liver transplants there. And when I went to King's, they had only done 190 liver transplants. So you can imagine from 190 to 5,000, 6,000. I've been really in the prime location for the field to be developing and to see developments in the field. And I really took on, and this is really how things went. I was a registrar, senior registrar consultant. And in 2004, I was given a professorship in the field of liver transplantation at King's College Hospital. It's not like in India, you become an automatic professor. In the UK. Many people would retire without becoming a professor, and I became a professor at a relatively young age, more to do really with really the academic performance rather than the clinical performance. And that's extremely difficult really to become a professor in the UK. So what made the difference, and how did people notice me in a new field where there was a senior surgeon also, and in fact, the senior surgeon and I worked very closely with each other. You can see here, Nigel Heaton was a senior surgeon. I always quote this as an example of a recognition. I just want to talk about this case. This was a young girl who had a liver tumor. You can see the CT scan. The tumor is right in the center of the liver, and this was deemed unresectable by most of the surgeons. And this was actually referred to me by a very senior pediatric surgeon from Great Ormond Street. He was really the father of pediatric surgery for the UK. And he said, this child needs, because I had an interest in pediatric liver transplant. He said, this child needs a liver transplant. There is nothing else you can do for this child. But I knew that I could take this tumor out. But if I ventured into taking it out and something happened, that would have been the end of my career, really. So I accepted the child for transplant. But I brought in 2 patients for transplant on the day. And I took this child. I removed the liver from the child, and on the bench, I took the tumor out, and then I put the liver back in like a liver transplant. This was done for the first time. And this was an extraordinary eye-opener for everybody in King's and everybody in the field, that one can do an extracorporeal surgery on the liver and then put it back in. Because I was a liver transplant surgeon, I had the ability to remove a liver and put a liver back in. So really that made a big difference to my life in King's itself. And really I was leading all the innovations. So what I say to people is you address a problem and then you find a solution to it. And if it helps the community, you win. It's important to actually identify a problem that you can find a solution to. So organ transplantation, the biggest problem even today you see is the shortage of donor organs. And we were putting whole livers into patients. A whole liver, cadaver liver was what was being done. And you saw with Thomas Starzl, I said there was a meeting, and that was to do with split liver transplantation. We were deciding that actually you can divide a liver into two and give a small portion to a child and a big portion to an adult. And this was not happening it was happening in Belgium as very small numbers. And I took this on in England. There wasn't anybody else. So I popularized this technique called split liver transplantation, and we started doing 2 transplants with 1 donor organ, with 1 cadaver. The results were comparable to putting a whole liver in. So that was something that really made me popular in the beginning. And this is one aspect. And the other is really an interest in transplanting children is what made me. So you can see here in the publication, the bottom one was my publication, and the middle one, 98 cases, were all the centers put together in Europe, was 98 cases. And that included the 41 cases that I contributed. So I had a 90% survival when you compare it to all the other centers, with the largest number at that time. So this really made, and this is published in Annals of Surgery, publication in Annals of Surgery. I mean, most of my publications at that time were really in a very high impact factor. Annals of Surgery, I think, currently has an impact factor of something like 12 or something. And again, the results of split liver transplantation in children were also quite outstanding. 80 children with almost 90% 1-year survival and about 85% long-term survival was what made a difference. So I said to you early, you identify a problem and you find a solution to it and you work on the solution. And if you get successful, I mean, it carries risks. Sometimes the risks, many people worry that if it doesn't work out, if you harm patients, the career is finished. A lot of surgeons are probably very, very conservative, and I've been probably a little bit more bold than many people. So I took on the subject matter of transplanting very small children. So when I went to King's, only about 10 patients had a transplant under 3 months of age. And if you look at the outcome, 50% of them were dead. So that's alive, no, yes, no, yes, no. So this was a huge problem. Transplantation for very small children carried a 50% mortality. And the reason for that was we are transplanting on newborns. They were really very sick with acute liver failure. They were swollen, and really you needed to have very high-end intensive care. And King's College Hospital had all of that, other than really the technical innovation. The liver that we took out, this is the size of the liver that you take out in a very small baby. But the liver that you put in was from an adult, which is, even though it may be only 25% or 20% of an adult liver, it really didn't fit into the abdomen. You can see the example here, how the liver is just bulging out. You can't close the abdomen. So we really devised many, many techniques. And this is again a publication that I'm the senior author of this publication, published in Surgery Journal, where I cut further down, what we call really chopping and chipping the liver off to the size of the recipient. This was one of the most important innovations that made a difference to the survival of the very small children. And you can see how a liver can be, with the blood vessels, cut into a tiny little liver that will fit into very small babies. So you can see the size of my hand and the finger and the baby's size. This is probably around 8 weeks old baby into which we transplanted a liver like that. And that really changed the outlook. And these are my colleagues who worked with me. Nigel Heaton, there is a Japanese surgeon who worked with me at that time. He's a big professor in New York now. And this gentleman is in Italy now. So these were the kind of work we were doing in the early phases. And that's what resulted in the youngest child ever to have a liver transplant. This family they were losing children after they were born due to a condition called hemochromatosis, congenital hemochromatosis. This is an Irish family who already lost 2 children, and the post-mortem in them showed that they were dying of liver disease within 1 or 2 weeks of birth. So we were the biggest pediatric transplant center in the world at that time. So the family came from Ireland to us. They made a diagnosis that the newborn also had the problem due to amniocentesis. Also, fetal medicine was very popular, very big in King's College Hospital. We made a diagnosis before the baby was born, and as soon as the baby was born, the diagnosis was confirmed. On day 5, I did the transplant, and that was really one of the biggest things at that time. I think every newspaper in the UK and around the world carried this article, and really that's another break. And this was a press conference held in King's College Hospital. I found this video on YouTube actually. That is the baby.
Overwhelmed with the whole brilliance and miraculous outcome that has occurred. And first of all, the donor, because of the anonymity of a donor, it's impossible to thank them. And we'd like to just give our heartfelt gratitude to donors of all organs, not just babies, and feel that people do give it thought. The healthiest session I've ever seen, so very melodious.
And a tragedy in somebody's life may cause somebody else's happiness, and for us it definitely has.
That little girl is now a doctor, and the 5-day-old girl now, she's become a doctor, and the other girl is a lawyer now.
This child, they would have died if she didn't receive transplant in 2 weeks' time.
That's a younger me at that time.
And to wait for a size match for this
Can you hear the video, Ramesh Babu?
Never going to find
Hello?
another child.
You can hear, but it is not very clear.
Okay. Yeah, but it's a YouTube video actually. You can see
If you just send the link, we will all see.
You know, these people have lost 2 children with this condition. And we
No,
have
it's done now. So that's what the child was, and this is the same child next to me, about 5 years of age, and that's the girl. 20 years later, she wanted to come and meet me. She's never had investigations actually. She's on very, very low immunosuppression. She is studying law in Dublin, and actually we invited her to India afterwards, and she came and met the chief minister and everybody really. As a success story of liver transplantation, I thought it was important that when somebody gets transplanted at 5 days of age, there's always this worry amongst people whether they would actually lead a normal life. And fortunately, the liver transplant patients have particularly when you get transplanted at a very young age, very small age, you don't need much immunosuppression. That was the important story. Now, really, everything was going well, and why would I want to move back to India was a puzzle for many people. 2009, I made a decision only to come for 1 year to Global Hospital because the Rabindranath that you see standing there was a close friend of mine at that time, and he said that you need to come and set it up here, at least do for 1 year, and then you can go back. And I came back, I took a sabbatical, and came back to Chennai and Hyderabad, and working in 2 places. And instantly I felt there was a huge opportunity. The opportunity came because I was interested in always technical aspects of liver transplantation, as you saw before. And living donor liver transplantation was happening in the East, not in the West, because the numbers of cadaver organs was enough in the Western countries, and it would be unethical to really think about living donor liver transplantation. But if one needs to really consider development in techniques, we had to come back to the East, and I felt that coming back to India would be an opportunity to develop the field of living donor liver transplantation. Because the cadaver organs are happening. We probably do one of the largest number of cadaver livers also, but the numbers are never going to be, I think it's going to take time. And the other thing is really offering for opportunity for children like this that you see. liver transplantation really transforms life. This is a child with biliary atresia, you can see on the left. It's the same child after 3 months after surgery, how really transforms their lives. And I felt that it's my interest has always been pediatric liver transplantation, and there were many, many children dying here and not affordable. It wasn't affordable to go abroad. And in terms of developing numbers also to become a world-renowned center, I thought there was an opportunity in India, and I stayed back. Many of my colleagues in London told me that my life would be finished and I wouldn't be academically be able to perform once I go to India. The life is highly competitive there, and somebody like me wouldn't survive in India. So that's where I came to Global Hospital, and to my surprise, I found that everything that could be done in London could be done in India. There were absolutely, you choose the right place and the right investments. It was very, very easy to do exactly what could be done in the UK. So I really developed a center which was not very different from King's College Hospital itself. I won't go into the details of this case because again, I'll tell you, this is a case where there were 2 children with metabolic liver disease. One liver can treat the metabolic disease of the other, and the other liver can treat the metabolic disease of the other. So I swapped the liver between 2 patients. So 2 patients got transplanted without a donor. One donated one half of the liver to the other. So this was really published as an outstanding way of progress in the field of transplantation without, it's a chimera really, without the need for organ transplantation. So I came to India. In 10 years, I've done over 2,000 liver transplants. So over 15 years, I had probably done around 2,500. I mean, UK King's College Hospital was the biggest center in Europe. I could really, now we do almost 250 liver transplants. We specialize, as you see, in pediatric liver transplant. And now we have grown to be one of the largest pediatric liver transplant centers in the world. I think only a Chinese center is doing more than the numbers I do. And this is not till now because Corona time, the numbers of transplants have dropped pretty dramatically, and hopefully things will improve over a period of time. So I do more than 60, 67 transplants. This is children alone in Chennai. And we have had really many, now the centers from Middle East or coming to India, almost 40% of the patients that I transplant are now coming from Middle Eastern countries, and Middle Eastern countries have been traditionally going to the West, to the UK, to United States and Germany for treatment. And we have a very strong connection now with the Middle East. In fact, the Oman, if there is any citizen of Oman who wants treatment for liver disease, if the government is going to fund it, they can only come to me. They can't go to any center in the West or anywhere in the world. They have to pay themselves if they want to go to any other centers. So that's how strong our link has been with the Middle East, and we offer huge amount of transplants for really not Pakistan, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. And we trained people from all over the world, even Western, South American surgeons and African and Middle Eastern surgeons come and train. I always said the government of Tamil Nadu has been fantastic in supporting. You'll be surprised to know that the government of Tamil Nadu funds liver transplant. And they give 18 lakhs for a transplant. And we almost do 20, 25 children with government funding. And there you see the health secretary sitting in the middle with me. And all of these children have been funded by the government for transplantation, which is an extraordinary thing. And this is not there in any other state in India. Only the Tamil Nadu government funds transplantation fully and completely. And I have to say I'm very fortunate coming back, and the government has really honored me many times, the best doctor, there's a certificate of merit awards. And I've been given the Lifetime Achievement Award in Dr. MGR University. And I've also had the honor of the doctorate in 3 universities. And when the previous Chief Minister Jayalalitha was there, I was honored with the DSc, a doctorate in, again, Dr. MGR University. So my work has been well recognized by the government as well. So I'm happy with that. Internationally, I'm well recognized in the field of liver transplantation, and I'm going to be the next president of the International Liver Transplant Society. No Asian so far has been the president of International Liver Transplant Society. In fact, no, I still hold a British passport. There's never been a British who's ever been before a president of International Liver Transplant Society. Academically, people said that I'm going to die when I come to India, but that's not been the case, and we've published enormously. This is an older picture, I think. I've got an H index now of 58. Oh yeah, H index of 58. I have more than 500 publications. I've been cited more than 12,000 times in the publications. And even after coming to India, if you look, this is the period 2010 to 2020, I still have 189 publications in PubMed. And there have been many, many collaborations with many international centers, even our. We also science research. We had an animal lab when I was in Global, and we have now constructed a very nice basic science. You've heard that. Contributed to book chapters like Gray's Anatomy after coming to India. This is when many people said, if you go to India, you will not be recognized an academician. That was not true. I've written a chapter on the anatomy of pancreas in the latest edition of Gray's Anatomy. And now I'm writing in Bailey and Love, a chapter on transplantation as well. So the recognition remains. You've heard about the masterclass in liver disease, which is one of the top. And finally, I moved in here exactly 2 years ago yesterday to the Rela Institute. It's been offered to me to run the place, and I run the place with complete financial independence. And we broke even month 2, really, after moving. And I have to be grateful when I moved from Global Hospital to here. I know it's been very uncomfortable for the hospital itself. 170 people moved with me on one day from Global Hospital into this hospital. I know it's not a very nice thing to say about another institution. I mean, that shows the loyalty that people had for me. And we built this now into a very strong institution in Chennai, really. I think you will know that in terms of business and revenue, we are probably number 3 or number 4 in Chennai already. And we are growing, and I'm grateful to my team for really the success story. I took about 100 of our people to Kodaikanal for team building efforts about 3 years ago. So it's a team building, and the current setup is second to none in the world. We have the largest liver intensive care unit in the world, actually. We've got 24 individual rooms intensive care, well staffed, and that's been one of the help for us. And we have moved on with technology. We have acquired, I don't know if you've heard about the Da Vinci robot. This equipment costs really 14 crores. And we are planning to do all donor operations through keyhole surgery using the Da Vinci robot. And this is, again, I've never been a laparoscopic surgeon. I've started doing robotic now. And it's pretty straightforward and easy. I'm not saying easy. Technically, I found that I'm able to do, even at this age, I'm able to learn new technology and develop new technology. And finally, when COVID came in March and April, everybody was scared about treating patients with COVID, and I felt that it's our responsibility friends to look after COVID patients. So I converted half of the hospital with a separate entrance into a COVID hospital. And we have now managed close to 1,500 COVID patients, and probably around 500 patients managed at home with COVID. And that's been good. And I've myself really got involved. It's not that I, as a manager, set it up. I do ward rounds virtually on these patients. I set it up personally to really look after. And my interest really, I think I've had now a lot of time to prepare Kambaramayanam. You can go to YouTube and look up. There are many, many debates and many, many speeches I've given. If you just put Mohamed Rela, you'll have many liver transplant speeches there. But if you put Kambaramayanam or Mohamed Rela, you will see this. And that is really, I stopped sharing. And I'm a huge fan of Tamil language, and we learn from every little person. We learn from every little people. Along your way, you may have a tough time that you learn from everybody. And I think I learn from every level. At the lowest level, it's about respect at everything that you see. I want to finish off Tamil because Tamil பேசிட்டு கடைசியில தமிழ்ல பேசாம இருந்தா நல்லா இருக்காது. I'm a huge fan of பாரதியார். பாரதியார் மாதிரி இந்த காலத்துல எந்த காலத்துலயுமே சரி ஒரு கவிஞனை பார்க்க முடியாது. His level of intelligence is huge. நான் ஒரு கதை சொல்லிட்டு முடிச்சிடுறேன். ஒரு பாரதியார் கதை, ஒரு சுயசரிதையில இருந்து ஒரு கதை, உண்மையான கதை சுயசரிதையில இருந்ததுனால. பாரதியார் உங்களுக்கு தெரியும், பாண்டிச்சேரியில he spent a lot of time. ஸோ அவர் வந்து ஒரு ஃப்ரெண்டு வீட்டுக்கு, ஒரு பார்ப்பனன் ஃப்ரெண்ட், ராஜராமையன் அப்படின்னு ஒரு பேர் அவருக்கு. அங்க போய் உட்கார்ந்து வாசல்ல திணையில உட்கார்ந்துருக்காரு. அவருடைய அப்பா வந்து உபனிஷத்ஸ் தமிழ்ல டிரான்ஸ்லேட் பண்ணி பாரதியார் அவரை திருத்த சொல்லி கொடுத்தாரு. திருத்திட்டு இருக்கும் போது இவரு கொஞ்ச நாள் தங்கி இருந்துதான் பாக்குறாரு. அவரு டெய்லி தெருவுல ஒரு பைத்தியக்காரன் ஒருத்தன் போயிட்டு இருக்கான். அவனை வேடிக்கை பார்த்துக்கிட்டே இருக்காரு டெய்லி. நம்ம எல்லாம் பார்த்திருப்போம், என்ன கிராமத்துல நீங்க எல்லாம் பார்த்திருப்பீங்கன்னு நினைக்கிறீங்க. இப்போ வந்து எல்லாருமே பைத்தியக்காரர், இப்போ யாராவது பேசிக்கிட்டே போனாங்கன்னா அந்த காலத்துல பைத்தியக்காரன் நினைப்போம். இப்பதான் எல்லாருமே ஹெட்போன் வச்சுக்கிட்டு பேசிக்கிட்டே போறாங்க. Maybe it's even difficult to identify a பைத்தியக்காரன் these days on the streets actually. So he sees somebody like that. ஒரு பைத்தியக்காரன் நடந்து போயிட்டு இருக்கான், பேசிட்டு இருக்கான், நாயோட விளையாடுறான், குழந்தைங்களோட விளையாடுறான் அந்த பைத்தியக்காரன். all torn up clothes and திடீர்னு நின்று முறைச்சி பாக்குறது, கடவுள் மாதிரி நடந்து போறது, இந்த மாதிரி இவர் பாக்குறாரு. இதுல நம்ம கத்துக்க வேண்டிய விஷயம் நிறைய இருக்கு அப்படின்னு. ஒரு நாள் போய் டக்குன்னு அந்த பைத்தியக்காரனை கையை பிடிச்சிட்டாரு. பிடிச்சிட்டு, நீ தான் எனக்கு குரு, நீ எனக்கு சொல்லி கொடு, நீ எனக்கு ரொம்ப விஷயம் தெரிஞ்சவன் மாதிரி தெரியல எனக்கு, நீ சும்மா இந்த மாதிரி பைத்தியக்கார வேஷம் போட்டுட்டு இருக்க அப்படின்னு கையை பிடிச்சிட்டாரு. அவரு பிடிச்சி விட மாட்டேங்கிறாரு. பைத்தியக்காரன் கையை பிடிச்சா என்ன பண்ணுவான், கையை முறுக்கி 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 அவன் அங்க இருந்து தப்பிக்க பாக்குறான். பேச மாட்டேங்கிறான், வாய் திறந்து பேச மாட்டேங்கிறான். இது வரைக்கும் வாய் திறந்தா ஒண்ணுமே பேசல. கையை முறுக்கிட்டு தப்பிச்சு ஓட பார்த்தானா, உடனே அவன் என்ன பண்ணிட்டான், இது விட மாட்டாரு இவருன்னு அவரை பார்த்து சிரிச்சான். பாரதியாரை பார்த்து பாரதியார் சிரிச்ச உடனே பாரதியார் என்ன பண்ணிட்டாரு, சரி நம்மள்ட்ட இப்போ பேச போறாரு இவரு அப்படின்னு கையை விட்டுட்டு காலை கும்பிடலான்னு கீழே போனாரா, அவன் அப்படியே அவர் மேல எகிரி குதிச்சு ஓடுறான். பாரதியாரும் திறத்திக்கிட்டே ஓடுறாரு. சின்ன சந்து வருது, அவன் அந்த சந்து உள்ள பூந்துட்டான். சந்து உள்ள பூந்தவொடனே இவரும் உள்ள பூந்துட்டு, அது பின்னாடி ஒரு கொல்லப்புறம் தான் இருக்கு, வேற வழி கிடையாது, திருப்பி இந்த பக்கம் தான் வரும். அவர் சந்தை மறைச்சிட்டார். மறைச்சிட்டு, நீ எங்கேயும் வெளியே போக முடியாது, நீ தான் எனக்கு குரு, எனக்கு ஏதாவது சொல்லி கொடுத்துட்டு தான் போகணுன்றார் பாரதியார். அவன் பார்த்தான், பாரதியாரை மறைச்சு மறைச்சு பார்த்தான். அது பின்னாடி என்னன்னா, ஒரு வீடு வந்து இடிஞ்சு விழுந்த வீடு, கொல்லப்புறம், செவுரு இடிஞ்சு மண்ணா கிடக்கு சில இடத்துல. அப்புறம் ஒரு கிணறு இருக்கு அங்க. நல்ல உச்சி வெயில், இந்த நேரம் நல்ல சூரியன் தலை மேல இருக்கு. அவன் என்ன பண்றான், குட்டி சுவரை காட்டுறான் பாரதியார்ட்ட கையில. வாயில பேசவே இல்லை, ஒரே ஒரு வார்த்தை தான் பேசணும் கடைசியா. குட்டி சுவரை காமிச்சிட்டு மேல சூரியனை காட்டுறான். சூரியனை காட்டிட்டு கிணத்து உள்ள பார்க்க சொல்றான். கிணத்து உள்ள பார்த்தா சூரியன் தெரியுது, அவ்வளவுதான். மூணுத்தையும் காமிச்சிட்டு, புரிஞ்சுதா அப்படின்னு கேட்கிறான் பாரதியார்ட்ட. அறுதிகளோ அப்படின்றான். பாரதியாரும் புரிஞ்சிருச்சே எனக்கு, ரொம்ப நன்றின்னு அனுப்பி விட்டாரு. அவனும் குதிச்சு குதிச்சுட்டு ஹாப்பியா போயிட்டான். இவர் பாரதியார் வந்து வேதாந்த மரத்தில் ஒரு வேரை கண்டேன் அப்படின்னு அவ்வளவு பெரிய ஆழமான விஷயத்த இவர் எனக்கு சொல்லி கொடுத்தாரு, என்னுடைய குரு அப்படின்னு பாரதியார் ஒரு பாட்டு பாடுறாரு. அந்த பாட்டை மட்டும் சொல்லிட்டு இதோட முடிச்சிடுறேன். அன்றொரு நாள் புதுவை நகர்தனிலே அடைக்கலஞ்சேர் ஈஸ்வரன் தர்மராஜா என்ற பெயர் வீதியில் ஒரு சிறிய வீட்டில் ராஜராமையன் என்ற நாகை பார்ப்பான். அது லொகேஷன் சொல்றார். ராஜராமையன் என்ற நாகை பார்ப்பான். முன் தனது பிதா தமிழில் உபநிடத்தை மொழிபெயர்த்து வைத்ததனை திருத்தச் சொல்லி எந்தனை வேண்டிக் கொள்ள யான் சென்றாங்கன் இருக்கையிலே அங்கு வந்தான் குள்ளச்சாமி. இதுதான் லொகேஷன். ஸோ புரியுதுல்ல உங்களுக்கு, கதையை சொல்லிட்டேன், அதனால புரியுது ஈஸி. அங்கு வந்தான் குள்ளச்சாமி. அப்பொழுது நான் குள்ளச்சாமி கையை அன்புடனே பற்றி இது பேசலுற்றேன். அப்பனே தேசியனே ஞானி என்பார், அவனியிலே நின்னை சிலர் பித்தன் என்பார். செப்புரு நஷ்டாங்க யோக சித்தி சேர்ந்தவன் என்றுனை புகழ்வார் சிலர் என் முன்னே ஒப்பனைகள் பேசாமல் உண்மை சொல்வாய் உத்தமனே எனக்கு நினை உணர்த்துவாயே. யாவன் நீ உணர்ந்தாய் கந்தை சுற்றி திரிவதென்னே தேவனை போல் விழிப்பதென்னே சிறியாரோடும் தெருவில் நாய்களோடும் விளையாட்டென்னே பாவனையில் புத்தனை போல் அலைவதென்னே பரமசிவன் போல் உருவம் படைத்ததென்னே ஆவலற்று நிற்பதென்னே ஆவலுடன் நிக்கல ஆவலற்று நிற்பதென்னே அறிந்ததெல்லாம் ஆரியனே எனக்கு உணர்த்த வேண்டும் என்றேன். கேட்டுட்டாரு என்னன்னு. அவன் வாய திறப்பான். அவன் என்ன பண்றான்? பற்றிய கை திருகிய குள்ளச்சாமி பரிந்தோட பார்த்தான், நான் விடவே இல்லை. சுற்றுமுற்றும் பார்த்து பின் முறுவல் பூத்தான். சிரிச்சான். சுற்றுமுற்றும் பார்த்து பின் முறுவல் பூத்தான். தூய திரு கமலப்பத துணையை பார்த்தேன். அவன் காலை பார்த்தான். குற்றமற்ற தேசிகனும் திமிரிக்கொண்டு பாய்ந்தோடி அவ்வீட்டு கொள்ளை சேர்ந்தான். குற்றமற்ற தேசிகனும் திமிரிக்கொண்டு பாய்ந்தோடி அவ்வீட்டு கொள்ளை சேர்ந்தான். மற்றவன் பின் யானோடி விரைந்து சென்று வானவனை கொள்ளையிலே மறித்து கொண்டேன். அங்க கொள்ளையில என்னன்னு சொல்றாரு? பக்கத்து வீடிருந்த சுவர்கள் வீழ்ந்த பால் மனை ஒன்று இருந்தது. அங்கே பரமயோகி ஒக்கத்தன் அருள்விழியால் என்னை நோக்கி குட்டி சுவர் காட்டி பருதி காட்டி அக்கணமே கிணற்றில் உலாதன் பிம்பம் காட்டி அறுதிகளோ என கேட்டான். நானும் அறிந்தேன் என்றேன். மிக்க மகிழ் தேசிகனும் சென்றான். நான் வேதாந்த மரத்தில் ஒரு வேரை கண்டேன். நான் என்ன கேட்கிறேன் உங்களெல்லாம், இதுதான் அவர்கிட்ட சொன்னது. அவன் இதுல அவர் என்ன புரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டாரு அப்படின்னு உங்களுக்கு ஏதாவது புரியுதான்னு முதல்ல செல்றதுக்கு தான் இவ்வளத்தையும் சொன்னேன். கடைசியா பாரதியார் சொல்றாரு, தேசிகன் கை காட்டி எனக்கு உரைத்த செய்தி செந்தமிழில் உலகத்தார்க்கு உணர்த்துகின்றேன். வாசியை நீ கம்பத்தால் வலிய கட்டி மண் போலே சுவர் போலே வாழ்தல் வேண்டும். தேசுடைய பருதி உரு கிணற்றினுள்ளே தெரிவது போல் உனக்குள்ளே சிவனை காண்பாய். பேசுவதில் பயனில்லை, அனுபவத்தால் பேரின்பம் எய்துவதே ஞானம் என்றான். மண் போலே சுவர் போலே வாழ்தல் வேண்டும். எவ்வளவுதான் நம்ம கட்டி வச்சாலும் ஒரு நாளைக்கு நம்ம மண்ணாதான் போயிட போறோம். அப்படி மண்ணா போற உடம்பா இருந்தாலும் இந்த உடம்புக்கு பெரிய சக்தி இருக்கு. அவ்வளவு பெரிய சூரியனை கொண்டு வந்து ஒரு கிணற்றுள்ள அடக்குற மாதிரி நீங்க பெரிய பரம்பொருளை கூட உங்க மனசுல அடக்கிறதுக்கு உங்களுக்கு சக்தி இருக்கு. அதனால பேசுவதில் பயனில்லை, அனுபவத்தால் பேரின்பம் எய்துவதே ஞானம் என்றான். ஸோ அவ்வளவு பெரிய பாடத்தை ஒரு பைத்தியக்காரன் போல இருந்த ஒரு ஞானிட்டேருந்து நான் கத்துக்கிட்டேன். ஸோ எல்லார்ட்டையும் நமக்கு கத்துக்கிறதுக்கு ஏதோ ஒண்ணு இருக்கு. நம்ம எப்படி பார்க்கறோங்கிறத பொறுத்து தான் இருக்கு. ஒரு பைத்தியக்காரனா பார்க்கணும்னா ஒரு பைத்தியக்காரனா பார்த்துடலாம். அதை சொல்லி முடிச்சிடுறேன். தேங்க்யூ. 1 hour ஆயிடுச்சு.